Growing up, I saw a lot of violence in my household. I didn't realize that it affected me until a situation happened recently. Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Deborah. I send you virtual hugs wherever you are because you are loved over here on this channel. So today's video, I decided to continue the conversation in regards to my healing journey. For those who do not know, I embarked on this journey of healing, just dealing with a lot of trauma and hurt and pain and just dealing with things that we typically do not want to deal with. So in this series, I spoke to you guys about heartbreak, healing from the mindset of comparison, people pleasing, learning how to set boundaries. I will definitely link the playlist to my healing journey down below in the description box, so definitely check that out so you guys can kind of like see where we're going, okay? But in today's video, I wanted to speak on something that I guess I can say like I'm kind of healing from, which is childhood trauma. On my channel, I kind of spoke to you guys a little bit about my childhood, how I was very quiet, grew up around older people, and so a lot of the times they kind of looked down on me because I was young or whatever, and so I didn't really speak up much because I felt like my voice wasn't going to be heard. But in today's video, I kind of want to open up another part of a childhood trauma that I kind of went through, and I didn't realize that it was a trauma until a situation happened and I was like, oh snap, this is trauma. And just before I get into that, it's interesting how it's not until I got on this healing journey that I really started to realize that certain things that I thought was okay actually ain't okay. So let's jump right into it. Where do I even start? I will say that I have a great relationship with my family, okay? Of course, there's issues here and there, as most family have problems, but this is not to taint anyone's name in my family. But the reason why I'm sharing these things with you guys is so that it can help you in your healing journey and kind of just shed light on certain things that we might have think was okay, which actually wasn't okay. So a lot of you guys may know that I grew up in a Haitian household. As I always mention, I am Haitian. Honestly, I thought I grew up in a strict household, but when I hear other people's stories, I'm like, yeah, I guess my upbringing wasn't that bad in terms of like the strictness. But I could kind of say like there were certain things that my parents were very much strict on. And growing up, I saw a lot of violence in my household. I didn't realize that it affected me until a situation happened recently. I want to say maybe a couple months back. So before I take you guys into my childhood, let me kind of just give you guys context, because you guys know I love to give you guys context so you guys can understand what led me to dealing with this trauma that I didn't know was actually a trauma. I had a family friend that came over, and so it was my mother, my uncle, my brother, and a family friend. So it's 4 of them that were in the kitchen. So I had went into the bathroom to go ahead and take a shower to start the day. And as I was in the bathroom, I heard a lot of noise. I heard a lot of ruckus, and it sounded like there was a fight going on. But I could not hear clearly because I was in the bathroom. I think I was washing my face around that time. I couldn't hear the words that were being exchanged, but all I heard was like a lot of noise, a lot of movement. And so instantly I ran out the bathroom and I went to the kitchen to see what was going on. So here I am, I run in the kitchen. I'm like, what's going on? And come to find out, the family friend and my brother they were play fighting. And I just remembered I ran back into the bathroom and I just started crying. You would have thought that something really happened. My heart was racing. I felt like I stopped breathing for a minute. When I got myself together, started to just really ask myself, like, why was I crying? I realized that it brought me back to my childhood trauma. And so growing up, I believe I mentioned in the beginning, growing up, I saw a lot of violence. I saw a lot of fights, a lot of yelling. And as a little kid, there are certain things you shouldn't see. As a little kid, I was the one that had to like break up the fights and like kind of just try to make everything at peace. I would try to get in the middle of things and I would accidentally get hit or thrown to the other side of the room because I'm in the middle of a fight or whatever. Me hearing the ruckus and the fighting, it brought me back to the trauma that I experienced when I was younger. Anytime there was yelling, best believe hands were being thrown. Then I just started to really dig deep and I realized that whenever whenever someone would yell at me, I'm in defense mode where I feel like, oh, you're about to put your hands on me, like it's about to get physical. I didn't realize how much it really affected me. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but I think it also causes me to be a little bit jumpy. One of my Kingdom sisters, like we was talking about it, she was just like, girl, you need to pray about that because you're too jumpy. Somebody could sneak up behind you and you already like jumpy or whatever. And I think, and it's something that I'm still processing, but I believe it may be related to that childhood trauma of always being in defense mode, of always being like on guard. Because growing up, once again, we could be good right now, and then 10 minutes later, a whole argument breaks out, hands are being thrown. I remember one Sunday, this was quite recently actually, we were having Sunday dinner with the family in the kitchen. My oldest brother started speaking about a punishment that he gave his girls, his daughters. And I remember my father, he was just like, oh, you know, make sure that when you're giving the kids punishment, you spank them a little bit, but don't do too much. Remember, they're kids, and so on and so forth. And me and my brother, we looked at each other like, is this the same man that used to abuse us when we were younger? Like, what? I'll say my father has anger issues, okay? He has anger issues, and he's like the typical Haitian man. He likes his food to be on the table. If you giving him food, make sure he got some meat, okay? He ain't eating it if it don't got no meat. Very much yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. You know, very strict in terms of that. When you see him, you say hi to him. If you don't say hi to him, it's a problem. So my dad is a typical Caribbean man, okay? Very prideful. Father is very big on respect, but also too, everything that my dad did in his eyes was because he loved us. Like, the correct thing is good, but the way he went about it was wrong. To go back to the story, so when my father, you know, said what he said, me and my brother, we looked at each other like, who is this guy? Like, what is he talking about? And you know what's real funny? I like how grandparents are soft nowadays. The other day I was yelling at my niece, and here comes my mother, the grandmother. She's like, oh no, don't yell at her. You know, it's okay. Don't yell at her. And I'm looking at her like, where was this when I was growing up? Like, where was this behavior? So it's funny how grandparents are real soft now, but growing up, they were throwing chairs, they were grabbing whatever was near them to hit us. It's funny how things have changed though. So yeah, so when my father said that, we were just like, wait, where is this coming from? And so I went ahead and I opened up the can of worms, and I started to speak about things that my father used to do when we were kids. And that was actually the first time that we ever addressed those situations. And I was just telling my father, I was like, hey, do you remember that you did X, Y, and Z? Do you remember that you used to do this and do that? And you hit us with this and you hit us with that, and so on and so forth. And his response literally shocked me, because he was just like, what are you talking about? I didn't do none of those things. And me and my brother were like, yeah, you did. And what the Holy Spirit revealed to me is the power of anger. The Bible says to be angry, but sin not. And the way to not sin when you are angry is to not allow anger to control you. But I realized that growing up, when my father used to beat us and hit us and things like that, and he used to just abuse his power, it was the anger that took control. And that is the scary part, because when you allow anger to control you, you literally go blind. You will literally start to do things that you wouldn't do if you were thinking about it. It brings me to my next point, where I remember having a conversation with my father, just speaking about certain things with him. Growing up, you know, with my father was not someone that you could sit down and talk to. His yes is his yes, and his no is his no, and you gotta obey it. And so when I started to just ask my father certain questions, like, why are you like that? And then my father started to just speak about how he was with his father. First off, my father is the firstborn of like 10 kids, I believe. 10 kids that we know, because I think my grandfather was out there. So my father was the firstborn out of all of them. So, you know, being the firstborn, you get the heat. And so with my father, he was just like, growing up with his father, you do what he says, and that's it. And if you don't, you get hit. There was no conversation. There was no dialogue. There was no talking. And that helped me to understand. And even in this journey, it's helping me to forgive certain things that happen, because when you don't know better, you don't know how to do better. That's not an excuse, but it helps me to be able to extend grace. If you grew up thinking that a certain way is right, it's going to be hard for you to break out of that because you grew up with the mindset that this is okay, that this is how it should be. And this is why I really want to speak about my childhood trauma, because I feel like a lot of us, we really kind of pushed it in the back of our heads. And for a lot of us, if we do not deal with the childhood trauma, what will end up happening is we don't know when it's going to blow up in our face. Thank God for me, I was home. I was able to pull myself to the side and kind of get myself together. But for some of us, it may show up in your marriage, it may show up in your workplace. You don't know. And so I really encourage us to stop creating trauma bonds, sharing it with people and just laughing about it. But no, let's honestly deal with that trauma, because we really don't know how it's going to spill over if we don't deal with it. It's because of that little boy or that little girl that's in you that hasn't healed from the pain and the hurt caused by a family member or caused by a family friend of some sort. And so I really encourage us to deal with that. Can you imagine, like, when I get married, me and my husband, we are arguing, and to have that in my mind that, oh my goodness, my husband may put his hands on me, that's a terrible way of thinking, because one of the worst things that can happen is when it comes out and you're not even ready for it. I used to feel like in order for me to be heard, I got to be disrespectful. I got to be loud, and I got to tell you about yourself, because that's the only way that you can hear me. And that's not true. Like, you can voice your opinion without being hurtful. And I remember I heard someone say this, that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. I realized that I didn't have to be disrespectful and have an attitude with people for my voice to be heard, but realizing that no, like, you just need to sit down and listen to what they're saying and try to understand what they're saying so that you can know what to say back. Honestly, like, we're all hurt. Let me speak for myself. I realize that I am a hurt individual. I've been hurt, but what's beautiful is the fact that I am dealing with those issues, because I do not want to bring old baggage from my past into the next season of my life. And so I really encourage us to really deal with those issues, those problems. I've heard people say things like, oh my goodness, I didn't expect myself to ever do that, or I didn't think I would ever do something like that. That's a result of you are not aware of your emotions. That's what happens. It will control you, and the enemy will use that to cause destruction, to cause chaos. And it's not too late to join me on this healing journey. There's more healing that God is doing within me. Okay, I've been on this earth for 20 plus years, so there's a lot of things that I've experienced and I'm going to experience. And so this healing journey doesn't end, because we live in an imperfect world, so there will always be things that will hurt us. But the whole point of this healing journey is learning how to heal from those situations, is learning how to handle those situations when they do come. Yeah, you guys, so that's my story. And I can honestly say, like, my father has grown a lot, okay? Like, compared to who he was before to who he is now, he has grown a lot. And that just took having conversations, just sitting down and talking with my dad, and now that I'm an adult, being able to tell him, hey, that's wrong, hey, you shouldn't do that, and speaking to him in a way that he can understand. And that's something that I had to pray about, is learning how to speak to my father in a way that he can understand. It's all a learning process. Life is all about learning. I just thank God that he has allowed me to really be able to extend grace and to forgive my parents for whatever they did when I was younger. And now looking at it, that, it was done out of love. It wasn't done to hurt me, but it was done out of love. But it's just that the way that they went about it wasn't right. But we're human, we're not perfect, and pray that God will lead you to forgive those who have hurt you. I think I'm gonna stop here. And of course, like I said, join me on this healing journey. We are forever healing. Definitely follow me on Instagram at Deborah_Faith. I don't know how the audio sound. Hopefully this works, because I'm trying something different. If you guys like this style, definitely comment down below. Hashtag, what we gonna hashtag it? Hashtag bed. Yeah. I don't know. Hashtag bed in the comment section if you guys like this setup or like this video, so I know. So of course, I thank God for allowing you guys to watch this video, because today was not promised, but it was all given by God. And I thank God for that. And I hope you guys have a good morning, good afternoon, a good evening, good night. Whenever you are watching this video, have a blessed day. May God bless you. And until next time, God willing, peace.
Be indecisive, but there is this one decision I will never